I'm going to continue discussing the idea of gestural envelopes as applied to this great, one of my new favorites is this illustrator, Charlie Harper. Cool stuff. This is just a line version of, he does full on all sorts of stuff. Check him out. Great animals, great. But what I love about it is that it is very two-dimensional shape oriented, but still is so cool. And anyways, so when we were talking about a gestural envelope and how that will help us hone in on a shape. Let's take, I'm going to go back to the example of the head. This kind of shape. So I'm not talking about eyes, I'm not talking about nose, ears, just the outer head shape. Being able to sort of see these shapes through all the detail is one of the challenges and one of the things you'll need to get good at, or you may go crazy. But for something like this, I may sort of start out thinking, what would a three-sided, well heck, first I may actually start off by thinking, what is a no-sided? What is an oval that's basically describing this cute little head? And from there, I would go, so oval, and there I would start refining that, yeah, I can sense that there's some curves going on here. I would start with those three I was talking about, but eventually I'm sure I would get to sort of a four-sided gestural envelope for his head. Hopefully you can see that. I know it's sketchy and messy, but that's fun. So if I was going to attempt to draw this cute dog head, should I do it over here or over here? I think I'll do it over here. So I might sort of start out, like I said, with just a basic oval. And that gets me pretty far. I mean, it's obviously not an oval like that. It has a width that has a little bit, it's obvious that it's longer and shorter here than a circle would be, so it's starting to tell us some things already. And then I would begin gesturing in sort of that overall shape that I'm talking about. And one of the reasons I'm doing this, again, this four-sided idea, is that I'm going to use diagonals to help me check proportions. So I know this, once again, this is not an exact rectangle, obviously, but in trying to hone in on pretty accurate, relatively quick and relatively close to what that shape would be. I would do something like that. And then I would continue to sort of refine that. And, you know, that's a large statement that includes a lot of things. Just refine it. Oh, is that all? But that will come in with a lot more practice, and this will get you off, like I said, to a great start for that sort of shape. Is it perfect? No, but will it get me started? Yeah. Let's, I'm going to agonize about this, actually, is what I'm going to do, but hopefully you get the idea that I'm just sort of going to continue to refine where the curves sort of bend a lot, where they are sort of straighten out, etc. How about an ear? How about an ear? And once again, I'm not going to do it's sort of. I'm just going to do. I'm looking at these individual shapes right now. So if I was going to do this, I'm going to go straight to a gestural envelope with 4 sides. Hopefully you excuse me. Hopefully you see the point that trying to straighten it out into 3 starts informing you about where things are really curvy and where things are relatively straight, and just starting to think, oh, that is more of a subtle curve, and that is more of a strong angle. So if I was to do take this ear, for example, once again, I might just start off with no sides and something like that. These are this whole notion of drawing an oval or an ellipse is something I haven't really talked about a whole lot, but hopefully you're familiar with the idea of what an oval is. So if I started like that, and then if I started angling these the lines that follow this my gestural envelope, I can do 3 of them for free. I keep using that. I'm not sure if that's working or not. 3 of them without really agonizing over the diagonals, and then when I get to creating the fourth line, that's when I do need some extra information. I sort of guessed where it would start and stop right there, but that one kind of goes straight up like that. I'm going to create this an additional diagonal here. I hope you're getting comfortable with using the side of your pencil by now. And so that right there would get me off to a good start. I can start thinking about refining that curve. I'm not refining it very well, I realize. But once again, sort of coupling, well, I'll get to coupling that with that. But the last thing I want to do just for this particular video, and Charlie Dog, I'm going to call him, is to think of his whole body as, excuse me, a gestural envelope. And yes, we're cutting some things off, maybe adding a little bit on, but we're getting a sense for where things curve, where things point, how they sort of feel like they're bending in space. This line here is sort of, I'm imagining it going through. I'm doing draw through or see through, which is another thing you'll need to become friends with. But now I have that, and I could think of this, and I could think of this. And being able to isolate these shapes is something that's tricky to do and extremely helpful. Because when you're sort of drawing anything, you know, a lot of it tends to relate to your preconceived notions of what something is. So once you can sort of break it down into two-dimensional shapes that are just more abstract in nature, that will help you greatly get to a more accurate drawing. So here's one of the diagonals I'm sketching in. So that tells me that this part is going to go down to about there. And then I'm going to swing down across, chop off his poor little leg, poor guy. I would probably check my math with that sort of mark. But what I can do with all of these, hopefully you're also seeing, is that I can start breaking down things into, like we talked about in the bounding box, these sort of imaginary implied triangles, and breaking things down in this way helps us get our head out of thinking of this dog in a certain way that we may preconceive of it, and actually helps us really isolating these two-dimensional shapes. This one I feel like comes, I want to feel it come a little bit further down here. So that might be how I would start even a bigger shape, and then start adding my additional shapes to that as they compare. I'm going to do that in my next video. Okay.